and let's get show on the road. So I call this emergency meeting to order this day on Thursday, sorry, my apologies, Monday, September 13th, 2021. We'd like to acknowledge that the offices of the Wilfrid Laurier University Students Association are located on the traditional lands of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. As for regrets, I'm very happy to say that I have received none. Moving on to the adopting the agenda, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Any discussion on the matter? I mean, would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando. Director Shando. Can you hear me?
He's connecting to audio.
Okay, then. I'll get back to him. So, Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Going back to you, Director Shando. Is he still connecting? If it's possible, could you type, okay, he approves in the chat. The motion passes unanimous consent. Next, moving on to conflict of interests. Do we have any to declare today? As I see none, moving on to comments from the chair of the board and CEO. So I have quite a few comments and updates to make, but most of them are in the briefing notes that I've sent out. Although there is one major one that I do have to report. So upon further review with the CRO, myself and other directors, we noticed that in the section, I believe Article 3, Section 19 of the Constitution, it requires that the election has to be run via a ranked ballot system. So unfortunately, the option to run the first past the post system, which was the more cost-effective option, would be unconstitutional. Yes, Director Vale.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion, just skip this quick, to reconsider, and I don't have the date since I don't have the benefit of having the minutes. And nor the wording of the motion that was passed, but basically reconsider the motion that related more or less to the going with the $500 option. And so if we have a motion to reconsider that decision,
Yes.
and then we'll need a separate motion after, obviously, to deal with.
So I
basically
can,
to
I can
approve the-
rephrase the motion. I guess we can motion to reconsider instead of option 1, sorry, instead of option 2, which was the $500 first past the post voting system by ICT that was approved by the board
Yeah.
in the emergency meeting, which was on Monday, September 6th.
Yeah, so I'll just make a
by-
motion to reconsider the decision to go with option
Yeah.
2.
So motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Symington. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none. All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok. You can type out I approve if you can hear, or abstentions or discrepancies. Okay, so I'm assuming I do considered a approval. You can give me a thumbs up if that is possible. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
So I believe that the next step is that then we have to have the board to motion to approve of the other, the option 1, which was the traditional ranked ballot system, which would be $2,500. Director Vale,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we proceed with option one, the $2,500 option.
perfect. Okay, so I'm assuming that you're motioning that and seconded by. That is a good question, Executive Director Champagne, because it's only the constitutional one, but I guess because of the fact that we voted for something that was unconstitutional last time, this is more formal to like ensure that like, we're trying to like, correct our mistakes. So it was motioned by Director Vale. Do we have a seconder? By Director Shandok, would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As there's none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok, Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May. Director May. I'll come back to you. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Singleton,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
I'm going back to you, Director May. Do you approve? Okay, so I'll mark this no vote. So the motion passes unanimously without the vote of Director May. So that would be 7-0. Okay, so with that being said, the rest of my comments and updates will be in the briefing notes that I've presented in the agenda. So now we can move on, if there's no further questions, to comments from the President and CEO.
I don't have any comments pertaining to this evening's agenda. However, I would just like to ensure that the directors are all aware that the video was posted or is soon to be posted this week, and it was shown at the opening ceremonies as was requested when approving the financing for the video.
I assume Director Vale, you have a question for the President?
I just want to keep it brief, but I imagine through you, Mr. Chair, to the President, I imagine presumably next meeting we'll get like a sort of report outlining kind of the cost in that regular meeting.
Yes, if that is the norm, then you will receive that.
'Cause-
Sorry.
Yeah, because I believe that was what the condition that was put on. Okay, thank you.
I also, just as a quick comment, I believe in our more regular meetings, once we're done with all this shenanigans with all these like back-to-back emergency meetings, there will be the board reports. So I think we'll be having a lot of information on that, and also the week two as well. So a lot of exciting stuff there. But if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank the President and CEO for their comments and their time today. Next, moving on to comments from the Executive Director and COO.
I have no updates for the agenda as of today. Prepared to provide a full report next week.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for the Executive Director and COO? As I see none, then we can get on to the real meat of the discussion today. So first is the CRO delegate contract discussion. So I presented so me and the CRO reviewed the contract, and we presented what we consider draft to be to basically amend it for the purposes of the by-election here. We, as per the board's request, we removed the honorarium. So the CRO delegate Del Giudice is working out of the goodness of his heart in this role. The only other area that had changed was just changing when the office hours would occur if we're able to get the CRO into the office, and changing potentially what the core office hours are. But I thought it'd be prudent to bring this back to the board before we send it off to HR to get approved, so then we can get the signatures done and formalize the process. I am not too sure, and this is where the executive director can help me. Does the board need to approve of the current draft of the contract, or are we okay to move on if there's a general consensus?
I feel confident that if there's a general consensus, we're able to move forward.
Okay, so this is where I'll open up back to the board. Do they feel that the draft that presented kind of captured the essence of discussion that we had at the last emergency meeting a week ago? Okay, so if that's the case, then perfect. So I'll send that to Shauna, and we can get that formalized into a proper contract for Director WDJ. Moving on, we have our next discussion, which is the election fall by-election DRO discussion. So, with a CRO on the Waterloo campus, it was a good opportunity to discuss whether or not we had a need for a DRO. So I presented an option for that. There is also additional updates that I have received. So with many thanks to our executive director, Champagne, for putting me in contact to one of the VPs on the operations team, Ahad. He has many great connections at Bradford campus, and depending on what the decision of the board is tonight, if we want a DRO, he's very much ready and has presented a list of what he thinks are excellent candidates to begin outreach, so we can get the process of hiring as soon as possible. So I thought that would be a good additional update to append to this briefing note. With that being said, I guess can open up the floor discussion, see where the board is leaning towards. Yes, Director Bothwell.
I think I just need a point of clarity here because I'm a little bit confused. So the CRO is on Brantford and the CRO is on Waterloo and the DRO is on Brantford.
Yes, for the purposes, the CRO could be anyone, but
Okay.
but according to policy, if the CRO is on Waterloo, then automatically the deputy returning officer would be on Brantford.
Okay, so you have to have like one from each.
Exactly, if we do decide to go with the DRO option.
Okay, and so the DRO would have like kind of like parallel roles to the CRO.
They would have parallel roles where they would, the main difference is that they would be the ones who would be administrating it on the Brantford campus in conjunction with the CRO. So it would be directly reporting to the CRO.
Okay.
And they would be basically monitoring the local conditions, so they can be much more proactive than we ourselves could, being on the Waterloo campus. Like proactive to any local changes on Brantford. If that makes sense.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, executive
I just had to,
director.
like, clarify that.
No, that's perfectly fine. Executive Director Champagne put it very much moot in point. Boots on the ground, eyes on the field. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Director Rothwell. Okay, perfect. Director Vale.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question, and then I'm gonna probably put forward a motion. Regarding like option one, assuming we go with the option one to hire, given that we really want to keep this moving along here, and I know that the timeline, the proposed calendar, which we'll get to later, I think the nitty gritty dates, if you will, would start tomorrow. So having said that, are we going to have the CRO designate kind of look after the initial sort of aspects of Brantford, and then until such time as the deputy returning officer for Brantford is able to take over?
Yes, that is the plan. If I may speak on behalf of the CRO, if that's all right. So that will be
Okay,
the main duties of the DRO would be to administer the election volunteers on the Brantford campus, as well as assist with the appeals committee if, I hope not, any like situations of that may arise in terms of demerits.
Okay. All right, so on that front, I'm going to make a motion that we proceed with option one to hire an individual who will be responsible for the by-election on the campus, Brantford campus. So hiring a DRO.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Director Shandok, would you like to speak to your motions? Any further discussion on the matter? Director Bothwell, you had your hand up, was that for the second motion?
There's a second motion.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Any other discussion on the matter? As I see none, can I get a motion on table? Oh, sorry, I mean, it's my apology. Can I, all those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shanto? Perfect, thank you. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
thank you. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington.
He's gone.
Oh, oh no, okay. On the record, Director Symington has left the meeting, oh, temporarily. Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Cindy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent without Director Symington. Next, now that we have decided to hire the DRO, we have to have a discussion on what the honorarium would look like. So we have three options. From just as a note, with the appended copy of the honorarium. I will note that I did accidentally make a mistake. The option one, which was an honorarium of $1,000, should have said $1,050. So that's an error on my part. But I guess opening the floors for discussion, Director Vale.
Yeah, so in my view, I think it really only comes down to options 2 or 3, that being in the $500 honorarium or no honorarium. I think given that this is in all material respects a fairly short election, it's just a straightforward, simple three position by election. So there's not complexity there. So my question really is, and maybe this is through to yourself, Mr. Chair, or through you to the CRO designate, is if we proceeded with no honorarium, do we feel that we would be able to get candidates? I guess, like, do we feel that we like, or likewise the 500, like, do we feel sort of that we would be able to attract a candidate for this position?
I can let the CRO delegate speak on this one first, if you like.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I'm going to advocate for option 2 for the $500 honorarium because I want to attract people to this position. I want to make this hiring process fairly quick, and I don't want to draw it out. So I think that by adding that $500 honorarium, it'll attract enough people to the position, and I fear not attracting enough people without it.
Does that answer your question, Director Vale, for that?
Yes,
particular-
yep.
Okay, perfect. So before I move on, there's a couple points. So the first thing I will ask before we go back to speakers list is that to the executive director. So in terms of the original issue of the students union, or specifically the board creating what we consider honorariums that moved away from what the actual legal definition of the honorarium is, with having the $500 honorarium put us at risk of going against our own policy, or would it be sufficient in terms
No,
of legal
A
risk?
$500 honorarium is true to the nature of it. So the value of the work is worth more than what $500 honorarium would pay out.
Mhm.
So $500 honorarium would, pardon the pun, honor that type of work.
Okay, thank you so much for that one there. Next, we can go back to Director Bothwell.
Yeah, I guess have a question, because didn't we just mentioned that Vice President, I think his name's Ahad,
Yes.
doesn't he have a list of candidates?
He has a list of candidates, but I think he was also under the impression originally that so I did notify him that
Yeah.
we were discussing what like if we were going to actually provide an honorarium, right? And we did have the discussion that if we did not provide one, then offering some sort of alternative benefits, aka food, gift cards, references, or even like a potential, like, you know, if you do this, you have a great shot of becoming the DRO for the actual annual election, annual general meeting in January, could be potentially sufficient compensation, right? But that was just something that we discussed in our correspondence. So I think he was under the impression that like some form of compensation was required in order to get the people that he was thinking about engaged. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, kind of.
But we do have, now that I'm looking at it, we do have a list of 45 people, but this includes not just for the DRO, but also for election volunteers, many of them icebreakers too as well. So people who are very familiar with the Brantford campus. So I'm very happy to say we have that at the very least. Does that hopefully answer your question, Dr. Bothwell?
Yeah, no, and I think Phil just said it was large for election volunteers, so
Mhm.
I also kind of in the opinion that we should go for the $500 honorarium because it'll
Mhm.
definitely
Okay,
incentivize people that are more serious than just volunteering on the day of.
well, excellent. Okay, thank you for those comments and questions. Moving on, back to you, Director Vale.
Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion to that we proceed with option 2, the providing an honorarium of $500.
Okay, perfect. Before we go on, I did see that the President Yamakov had her hand up. Would you like to speak?
Oh, I was just going to follow up with Director Bothwell's question in relations to the list. I don't think the list has been necessarily contacted on behalf of AHOD. This is just a list of Brantford students who do engage on campus. I don't know if there will, like, I don't know if an honorarium has even been mentioned to them or if they know that they've been put on this list of potential candidates.
Okay, perfect. So I think that the board is in, like leaning towards offering that $500, which I think would very much ease, you know, the issue of trying to get proper candidates for the DRO position on Brantford. Yes, Director Bothwell.
I'm just curious, like, how does the $500 honorarium compare to like the election in January's?
So the election in January, so I posted the description. This should be on page 6.
Oh,
So
sorry.
so that's where my mistake was. So option 1 was supposed to represent the full honorarium that they would have earned in a January annual, generally like the normal election, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, if we do go with the 500 of that, essentially speaking, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
where does, wait, sorry, where does it say?
Page 6 of the updated agenda package.
Okay.
So position description, deputy returning officer. Just as a record,
Okay, so it's,
yeah,
it would be double.
it would be, yeah,
For-
double if it was normal, like compared to
Okay.
the 500 right now. Just as a point of reference in the briefing note, the only concerns with this would be the fact that the CRO delegate would receive no honorarium, but the DRO would. So the board, like, this would just be something that I think we just put on the record, for sure. But other than that, I hope that answers your question, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, I think it's good that we have an honorarium. It's just interesting to me that the honorarium for like the January election, which is like much bigger, like you're hiring like 10 times the amount of people, is only double. So I'm just wondering if the honorarium that we're providing is maybe too big.
Mhm.
I don't know.
We could potentially bring it down to a much smaller number, maybe 250 is a ballpark figure, if that's what the board is comfortable with. I think even a small monetary amount of money for, to be clear, if we look at the election calendar, for about 3 weeks of work, if we get the candidate hired by next Monday. So like almost like $100 per week, right? That's just food for thought. Yes, Director Vale.
Yeah, I'm gonna withdraw my motion. And then I'm gonna put forward a new motion since my motion wasn't seconded anyway. So I'm gonna make a motion that we proceed with an honorarium of, I think, $400 for both the CRO and for the DRO.
Before we get to it, because I remember in our last discussion, there was a potential issue if we gave the CRO delegate a salary. And
It's an honorarium.
Sorry, my apologies, like an honorarium. I'm gonna, not that I do not want to take away, compensation to, CRO Del Giudice, but I'm gonna defer this question to the executive director to see, like, would this be fine? There should not be any like,
So I don't know the ins and outs of it. What I might suggest is that vote on the DRO. I think the DRO can be decided on today. If you guys leave the door open, I do believe the CRO should be compensated in some way. I know that he's agreed not to get compensation, but this can give us a little bit of time to get some consultation to make sure that we're doing it the right way. I definitely think the work that Francesco is going to be doing warrants a thank you of a financial reward, in my opinion.
yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. But that is my opinion. I'm going to move back to Director Vale.
Yes, I'm gonna amend that motion or withdraw, I guess, since it wasn't seconded, and I guess so I'm gonna make a motion that we proceed with an honorarium of $400 for the DRO with a report to come back to the board regarding compensation for the CRO
Okay.
at a future meeting.
Do we have a seconder? Just before going that, I do want to note in the comments that Director Bothwell suggested a $250 split between the DRO and CRO for compensation. But do we have a seconder for Director Vale's motion? Okay, since I do not see anyone, is the board still split on how much compensation? Do we feel that the compensation of $400 is too little or is it too big? Yes, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, I feel like for the few weeks of work, like I think it's a little too high. Like if you just compare it to like the 1,050 they're gonna get in January. So I'd like to, if we're seeing like 250 is too low, I'd like to motion to make it 300.
Okay. Director Vale, would you like?
I'll take that as a
withdraw?
friendly amendment to my motion.
Mhm.
That
Perfect.
basically to make it 300, but my other thing too is, and I think that's a fair point too, and I think 300 is kind of a good balance, is the idea that the reality is they're still doing the sort of the same amount of work, just in a very much rapid time frame in the shorter, but I do think 300 is reasonable. So I'm willing to make that a friendly amendment to my motion.
If we do make it 300, that will be approximately $100 per week for work, which I think is fair, given the fact that they will be coordinating, hopefully with a large team of volunteers. I did notify that that I'm looking for minimum 5, hopefully up 15 volunteers. But if we get like 20 or 25, that would be amazing for some outreach. So I think 300 should be sufficient. So we'll take that as amendment to that. So do we have, or do you want to rephrase that motion, Director Vale?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify the exact motion, I guess more for the minute purposes, that basically a motion to approve the honorarium of $300 for the DRO with a report to come back to the board relating to compensation options for the CRO at a future date.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder? Director Bothwell. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok. Thank you, Director Shandok. Director Del Giudice.
I approve.
Would he have to abstain in this since?
I would say he probably should declare a conflict of interest, just because it could
Yes.
potentially relate to potential compensation that could arise.
Yes.
All right. So I abstain.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, the assumption is because Director Del Giudice is the CRO delegate. Moving on, Director May.
I approve.
Thank you. Director McCarthy.
I approve.
Director Symington. Oh, is he still? Oh, my apologies. Yes. He's not here. Director Vale
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes 6-0 to 1. For the record, I actually just got a notification that Director Symington left because he had to attend his Department of Residence Area Dawn team meeting. So
He did
with-
mention that in the chat, so it is there
Yes.
in the record, or he left tech officially at 10:13 if the recording wants to know.
Perfect. I really appreciate you guys having the eye on the chat like that there. Okay, moving on, we have the nomination campaign dates discussion. So in the briefing notes presented, what it deemed was a based on the discussion between myself and the CRO on how best to run the election in terms of the events and dates. So opening the floor for questions. Director Vale.
Yeah, my only question, and that might go to yourself, Mr. Chair, and obviously through you to the CRO designate, is on the nominations I see on the proposed dates would close on the 22nd at noon, which would also coincide with an all candidates meeting that night. The concern, and maybe not a concern, but more of a question, I guess I'd like clarity on is it operationally feasible, given that we don't know how many nomination packages we're going to get, for you and yourself and the CRO and the DRO presumably to be able to essentially go through and validate those applications in such a rapid time frame before the meeting?
That is a very good question.
Or should the nomination maybe close the day before to kind of give you a sufficient amount of time?
We could definitely amend it to have that, if the CRO and I feel that initially it was originally designed because, and the CRO can step in to correct me, at any time if I'm, speaking, more of myself than in his, view, that, the signatures would be something that, we would kind of help the candidates, especially if they're in first year, since we do suspect that they might not know as many people as compared to ourselves as more veteran students, and that's as kind of like we would take a more proactive roles as the signatures kind of came in, we would review them in live instead of all of them at just once on the day of. But if it is the opinion of the board that we should move it back, to move it back and give ourselves the 24 hours between, let's just say, the nomination packages coming in and then the all candidates meeting on the 22nd, then that is a very fair point. How does the board feel about that change to schedule?
I have my hand raised. I don't know.
Oh,
if you-
I'm so sorry. I have my, you know
my-
what? I accidentally had my thing pinned back at Director Vale. Oh yes, Director Bothwell.
Just my only concern with that, I think it is better to have more time, but it also gives students less time to collect signatures. So it gives them a day less. And I think it won't take a long time to go through the signatures. And I do see Director Champagne's point about verifying age, but aren't they just submitting a picture of their ID?
Yeah, and I think traditionally it would just be either the pink government issued government ID if they're an Ontario citizen or a driver's license. Just to answer a question about the kind of thought process that me and the CRO had, we initially wanted to have it on the 24th, the nominate the all candidates meeting. But the thing was that with the weekend being homecoming, we kind of suspected that many of the candidates would probably be very distracted from, and also the student population be distracted from the election with those festivities and events going on. So we thought moving it back at the halfway point would be a happy compromise. Yes. Director Del Giudice.
Yeah, so I'm going to argue that we keep it the same, mainly because I don't think it'll take much time to approve of these to approve of these signatures and to approve the age, as Director Bothwell explained. It's a screenshot of their ID. We don't have to do too much digging for that, and really, it won't take too much to review to see if these signatures are correct and to see if they're valid. Yeah, I don't think we need to close it a day before. That's what I'm saying.
Before I head back to give the floor to Director Vale, I'm going to ask the Executive Director Champagne, do we think if, let's say we put the, so our board meeting is at 8:30 next Wednesday, September 22nd. If, let's say we had the all cans meeting at 6 PM that day, do we think take 6 hours is sufficient time to go through and double check all the, finalize all the, age as well as the signatures?
I mean, the only thing that would hold us up is like an avalanche of candidates, which would be wonderful problem, but an unlikely problem. So I think that should be ample time.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. I'll bring it back to Director Vale.
Yeah, so I'm having heard the comments from yourself, Mr. Chair, as well as the CRO designate. I feel comfortable that it seems that both of you, obviously, and then the DRO, and as well as the executive director and others who may be involved, I think it seems like it might be operational feasible from your side. So I'm comfortable with that. So I would be prepared to make a motion that we proceed based on the schedule presented.
Okay. Motioned by Director Vale, seconded by Director Bothwell. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? Actually, just for a quick clarification, because I think it would be good just to nip this problem in the bud. To the CRO, are you available if we made the all candidates meeting 6 PM that day?
This is on a Wednesday, correct?
On the Wednesday, yes.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, perfect. Okay, just to make sure, because this would be a bit embarrassing if both of us were not available on that day somehow, and we had to change it last minute. Okay. Oh, sorry, Executive Director Champagne, do you have any comments? See in the chat there.
No, it was my sarcastic
Oh,
response. to
sorry.
the mentioned events.
Okay. Oh, now I'm seeing it. Okay, my apologies. Okay, so that was motioned by Director Vale. I'm sorry, I forgot. Was it seconded by Director Bothwell? Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion to matter? So I see none. All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok. Thank you. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
The motion passes unanimous consent. I'll be sure to get the get back to board on the specific times of the open forums for both Brantford and Waterloo. Moving on to our final discussion, I believe for the fall by-election, this will be the in-person / remote election options. So a very brief summary. Most of the content is within the in the briefing note, but it was in our discussion between myself and the CRO, if the candidates that we received, if all of them were considered on campus in person, we would run a hybrid election, which would mean in-person campaigning, posters out on campus, but also broadcasting everything online, so our virtual off-campus students could view it. But if there was at least one candidate who was unable to be on campus during the duration of the by-election, then we would just have it as a fully virtual election. That's the summary of it. Opening the floor for discussion. Yes, Director Bothwell.
If you're saying like we have one candidate that can't make it on campus and it'd be fully virtual, do you mean like we wouldn't be able to have in-person voting?
No, in-person voting I think would still be possible. It just means that we would eliminate all the on-campus marketing for the candidates specifically. So we would still have like generic like Laurier votes marketing, but nothing like no posters, no like booths, none of that stuff on behalf of the candidates themselves.
What about the posters that like go in like residences and like
So
that'll like automatically put up there and like the
so-
ones that's by Wilfs and stuff?
that those would only be for just a generic, like just please vote in the election, type of posters, nothing regarding a specific individual candidate, just to be equitable for everyone. So just pretty much most of the marketing would occur online on those candidates' behalfs, which would be, obviously we're trying to be like, this is the decision to try and just be equitable, so we don't feel that any student who's just unfortunately able to be on campus this term feels left out of the process, right?
Yeah, but in the past, like every single person that had a campaign poster, like their posters like put up on the stairs up the FNCC. So I don't see why we couldn't still do that.
It's just because unless we're
like-
able to coordinate with that virtual candidate,
That
that we
they
could like, if we were able to coordinate and we were able to like take their posters and like post it on their behalf, then we could potentially do that.
No, I just mean like the one poster, like where it's like, like up the stairs of FNCC where there's always every single person's poster. Like I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure the Students Union puts that in there. It's like not an individual campaign thing. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, that's what I'm saying. So we will still do like generic campaign posters, like the lower hashtag Lori vote stuff, just nothing like vote for director blank for board direct, like if that makes sense, right? So like, let me rephrase it. So
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just thinking more like in the past, every single person's poster has been in that
yeah,
bulletin board.
so if it's a hybrid election, we can still do that. If it's a virtual one, then we can't allow anyone unless the virtual candidate sends us their posters. I'm assuming that's your question.
A candidate would have to prepare
I just-
materials one way or the other, whether
Yeah.
they're digital or physical. And we do, again, if need be, we do have the ability to print in-house and be able to put those posters in the areas Director Bothwell is referencing.
Yes.
And a similar area does exist on the Brantford campus. So there is an opportunity to put limited posters up around campus that would be equitable for everybody.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, I was trying to get to that. My apologies if it came out in a very roundabout way. The main thing that this would really affect would be how we would run the open forums. So it could either be like a hybrid type of situation where we would have like the candidate who was unable to be in person, like on a computer, like but on campus there, right? Or we just have to operate the whole thing online. But yeah, moving on, Director Vale.
Yeah, so in my view, I'm the opinion, I think probably option 2 is the best. I think it provides flexibility, and maybe just a suggestion, perhaps maybe in the like the nomination packages, maybe you include like a checkbox or some sort of option just for students to kind of indicate whether they're online only or something like that. But I think as well, keeping in mind that the pandemic we are in this 4th wave, and I think the pandemic is evolving. So in terms of the university community, the impact could potentially rapidly change in terms of what restrictions the university may impose on terms of campus sort of activities, vis-a-vis, being able to have booths and stuff like that. So I think we're going to have probably the ability to kind of respond to anything that might arise around any of that sort of things, or potentially gatherings. So like the open forum and stuff like that sort of could impact. So I think having that flexibility, I think is going to be important. So I would make a motion that we proceed with option 2.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone else have any comments? Executive Director Champagne, I did see your hand up earlier.
No, I was going to ask a question about the open forum, but it seems to be asked and answered. We're good. I do have a quick question. Do we plan on having information sessions to educate prospective board members on what it is a board member should be doing?
That is the plan. So I've already spoke with the CRO saying that in the upcoming days we're going to be trying to get as people's schedules, and hopefully we can have doing it on the Waterloo campus would be very easy, but I'm trying to make sure that we can do one on the Brantford campus. If we're unable to gain a generous transportation to the Brantford campus, then we're going to have to rely on we're going to very politely ask President Yamilov to utilize the management team, operations team on Brantford to hopefully distribute the materials to inform people of the of what the board actually does. So, and it's also, and just case in point for your question too as well, it is also my desire that at least with, even if the forums are online, it is my hope that at least one point during the campaign period, we can get some of the directors onto Brantford to just drum up support for the election, just talk to some of the students. I personally found my time at Brantford during a week extremely informative, reaching out to students, asking about their problems, even though the Get Involved fair did get cut short due to rain, but I still thought it was extremely productive. So yeah. But I think based on discussion that the board is leaning towards the hybrid election option as presented in the briefing note. So can I get a motion on the table?
Point of order, I already put a
Oh,
motion for it. And I
perfect.
believe maybe Director Bothwell had seconded, if I was not mistaken, or I could be wrong.
Don't think she seconded, but I'm assuming now you're gonna
did.
second it. Like you did? Okay, my apologies. We're going through a lot of amazing ideas tonight. So would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? Yes, I see none. All those in favor, Director Bothwell?
I approve.
Okay, thank you, Director Shandok. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Okay, the motion passed unanimous consent. And I believe now we have our one committee elections. So this is the general meeting and elections appeals committee. So two directors, so the positions require two directors, and I believe it is regardless of campus. So the floor is now open for nominations. I believe that based on our discussion in the emergency meeting last Monday, that the board deemed that if you're running in the January annual general meeting or election, that it would not be a sufficient conflict of interest. So I believe that you could still run for this committee. So the floor is open. Any takers? So the people, just to give you kind of a brief background based on the governance policy GP to G3, these people, so the general meetings or the election side of the committee will be helping running the election. And the appeal side would deal more so with the demerits and reviewing any of the situation of the conduct of the candidates during the campaign period. I'll wait patiently here for nominations. Okay, Director Vale.
I'll nominate Director Bothwell.
Director Bothwell, do you stand?
Of course.
Excellent. Okay, Director Del Giudice,
I nominate Vice Chair Sneedy.
Vice Chair Sneedy, do you stand?
I do not.
You do not stand. Okay, the floor is now open again for one more nomination, unless there's more and we want to go for elections. This is perfect training for me being a TA, you know. This, you know, the silent room.
It's almost 11 o'clock, people. You're killing me.
I know. Come on, guys, it's a fun committee. You get to hang out with me. Director Del Giudice,
I nominate Director Vale.
Director Vale, do you stand?
Begrudgingly, I guess.
I mean.
Yeah, yes, I guess unless somebody else wishes to do it, which I
I
think judging from
will-
the silence,
I will say that I do recognize that you have stood for a lot of committees, so I would like to still see someone else stand for this. But if there is absolutely no one else here, and the one other person who I think would be good is not here, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna pick someone.
Yeah,
I'll nominate Director McCarthy.
Director McCarthy, do you stand?
I'm sorry, that's gonna be a hard no for me.
Oh, come on now. You get to hang out with me. I give you free pizza and food. It'll be fun. Still, I guess still a no.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
That is fair enough. Okay, Director Del Giudice,
I nominate Director May.
Director May, do you stand?
Sure.
Okay, so we have 3 nominees standing, so I'm gonna go back. Director Vale, do you still?
I do
continue
not wish
stand?
to stand.
Not wish to stand, that is fine. Okay, so is there any nominees remaining? As I see none, can I get a motion on the table to claim Director May and Director Bothwell to the general meeting and appeals committee? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shando. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As there's not, as I see none, can I get a motion? Sorry, can I, all those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I abstain.
Director Shandok, thank you. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I abstain.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Cedi.
I approve.
The motion passes 5-0-2. Okay. Now finally moving on to new business announcements. Does anyone have any new business announcements to make? I think all. I will say this, I did receive the email, Director Bothwell, about the bowling club, so I'm quite excited for some of those future events, especially if they're gonna be hosted at Binghamton's.
Yeah, we had
So-
140 people join bowling club at Get Involved Fair.
Wow, there you go. Oh my God, that's
So-
amazing.
That was crazy. We I guess we're really popular in the first year floor group chats, and we had people like running up to us being like, "Oh my gosh, we've been looking for you."
Yes. I'll also use this opportunity to give applause where applause is due. So I really like to give a round for Director Del Giudice for his outstanding work at the Get Involved Fair. He definitely raised a lot of like great eyebrows from the operations team who sent me some lovely pictures of him and his amazing outreach. And as a result, I've received actually a lot of great questions and outreach regarding the board secretary position. So I feel like the board in that regard is looking pretty promising. So I just want to, show appreciation where it's due. Yes, Executive Director Champagne.
I would like to strongly encourage board members in their recruitment for candidates for the election to try and kind of encourage some women to run so that we can have a little bit more of a balanced board. I think that would be a little bit more representative and a little bit more equitable.
Yes. Oh, I think that is an excellent note to have, and I think a great way to end off this meeting. I just want to say I really appreciate all the hard work that everyone's been doing. I know that these late night meetings are not that fun. And I appreciate all the patience that has been put on everyone to get through these processes. And on that very lovely note, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? I guess motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion? And discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok. Thank you. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
Approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Director Seavey.
I approve.
Motion passed unanimous consent. Have a fantastic night, everyone. Oh, but before everyone leaves, members of the general meeting elections appeal committee could just quickly stay back for like 1 minute, I promise. Just to give a quick word about just the plans and stuff like that moving forward. But other than that, everyone else have a wonderful night.
Make sure you stop recording, Andrew. Have a good night.
Good night.
Why'd you do